the trouble with technological innovations as solutions to women's safety. I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes about my research around women's safety and the technological responses to addressing gendered violence within society. Firstly, just to give you an overview, women's safety is a key issue that is currently being addressed in various places, but to differing degrees across the world. In the past few years, there have been some very high-profile calls to attention to address the issue of gendered violence and women's rights to live a life that is safe, one that is free from violence at the hands of men. You may have seen the Me Too movement, for example. That's a particularly high-profile global movement that's called attention to the issue of men's violence and the lives that women lead and why we feel unsafe. It's important to point out that there's no one particularly safe place for women, not even the home. So when we're thinking about women's safety, we also need to be thinking about the prevalence of domestic and family violence within our patriarchal societies. A lot of my work focuses on women's safety in more public spaces, but that differentiation between private and public makes even less sense in a digital world where we've always got our devices with us at all times, completely connected to the internet, whether we're at home or we're outdoors. So that sort of differentiation between public and private spaces and women's sense of safety makes less and less sense. But gender is one of the most important factors determining whether you fear crime on public transport and in public spaces. Your gender impacts how safe you are and shapes how safe you feel as you move around the world and travel through different places at different times, living your everyday life. Women's sense of safety, or lack thereof, has been theorized within the academic literature as a geography of fear, living in a geography of fear, being always aware of where you are, your surroundings, who is behind you, who might be coming in the door, have you got the door locked, and constantly thinking about how your actions are keeping you safe or putting you at risk. So if you're having to walk home alone, for example, or you're out at night in the dark, or you've worn a particular outfit, or you're from a particular minority group that makes you more vulnerable to violence. These are all things that women think about at all times as they move through the world, and that's being thought of as a geography of fear. It's a lived experience. So trying to address that sense of fear and feeling unsafe, technological solutions are being proposed to address women's concerns. There is a long history of a relationship between technology and safety. We've had CCTV for a long time, identification systems, electronic tagging devices for perpetrators of violence, and so on. But what's significant right now is it does appear that we are in a significant period of time where technology is being looked to as a solution for really complex issues such as women's safety. Researchers such as myself would argue that we are in a realm of techno-solutionism, in that there's an app for that culture. An app can fix everything. You just need to find the right data, the right algorithm, and you can address men's violence towards women and make women feel safe. And so academics such as myself, policymakers, and people who are advocates for women's safety and addressing domestic violence are raising the issue that some of these technological solutions that are being proposed, it's really difficult to find a techno fix for long-standing, deeply ingrained power structures within society that have gender and women's lower socioeconomic status within society, and the cultural issue of gendered violence, and perhaps how the problem is being framed by technology developers and companies as addressing women's safety rather than what makes them unsafe, which is men's violence, is a problem. So the problem needs to be reframed for technology to do a better job of making women safe. So at the moment, some of my research has been to review what's being developed by the technology sector to address women's safety. There's lots and lots and lots of apps being proposed, apps everywhere. It's like that's the only thing that we can think of in terms of technology to enable women to feel more safe. So there's lots of personal safety apps that do a variety of things. Nikki Carnes at Monash University in Melbourne talks about the mobile phone as a digital chaperone, and that looks after you, and as a safety net, it connects you in. If you've not got your phone, you feel unsafe. And so these apps are there to keep you safe and connected to people, to provide you with information about where's safe or not safe, panic buttons to call for help, and those kinds of things. There's also apps being developed for domestic violence victims and survivors, for them to get help, to find services of support. There are some wearable devices that are on the market, panic buttons that are easy to press, and call for emergency responders. But yes, and a lot of that technology that's being designed is for women. It's for women to buy, women to wear, women to download, women to do the work of keeping themselves safe, which fits in with the geographies of fear idea, is that women are always thinking about how to keep themselves safe. It's a lot of work, and that work is unequal. So the technology is designed for women, and it's not designed for men to help them stop committing acts of violence towards women. So this is what we mean by the problem could be reframed, but technological solutionism and the innovation sector is currently framing the problem as we need to keep women safe without addressing the elephant in the room, which is men's violence. An important question is really to think about who is designing and developing this technology. And if the incentives for developing technologies to address women's safety are around revenue and making profit, then we're not likely to get a really good solution that addresses the actual issue of gendered violence in society. We're not going to get that level of insight. Some domestic violence advocates point out that the technological solutions, the people that are developing in them, particularly for domestic violence, severely underestimate the threat of a perpetrator who is really determined to harm their intimate partner or ex-partner. So there's a real need for the technology sector to really advance their understanding of gendered violence, and how it works, and how some of the cybersecurity settings around all these new devices and apps need to be really, really tight, because there are some really determined perpetrators of domestic violence who use technology. So sometimes a lot of the technologies that are being developed as well are actually posing a risk to a woman. She might be tracked through a personal safety app, for example, that's supposed to help her move through the world safely. It might be used to control where she goes and who she sees, and how long she's out for, that kind of thing. So the technology, that's also like a technological paradox, is that it's good and it's bad. So one of the things that I would really like to see is the innovation sector and the technology startup sector that are building and developing a lot of the technological products, services and devices to address women's safety, to critically reflect on what they are making, and to think about the ethics and the implications of that technology, and how does it position women. Is it responsibilizing them to keep themselves safe, to have this technology? If you don't have this technology, is it then your own fault for, are you more likely to be blamed for experiencing violence if you don't have a particular app, for example? Where are we going with these technological solutions? And to think about what kinds of things they're seeking to disrupt. And so with the way that the problem is framed at the minute to address women's safety, they're not disrupting current ideologies around, addressing women's safety without tackling the thorny, difficult issue of men's violence. So I think once we see technology companies and services developing products that are targeted towards men rather than women, we might be getting somewhere. So, once the personal safety apps shift from being advertised towards women to keep themselves safe, towards men to stop committing harm or to make a contribution towards making women safe, then we might be getting somewhere. Hopefully there's been something of interest in my little talk for you about the use of innovation and technological solutions to women's safety. If you would have any questions or comments, I'm happy to receive those via email on j.condie@westernsydney.edu.au.